To frame or not to frame? That is the question. That's the question I'm going to be talking about today. I've had lots of people asking me about framing and wanting to know what I do, and there seems to be a confusion around framing. It has a big question mark. What should one do? What should one be thinking about when making that decision? All those sorts of things. So all I can tell you is my experience. So that's what I'll do today. A lot of abstract work or a lot of painting doesn't have a frame, and that's absolutely fine. But for me, I actually do like a frame on pretty much all of my work. There are some smaller works that I don't frame if they're on a cradle panel, and if the edges are very neat. And I'll show you one of those later, but for most of my work I like a frame. Why do I like a frame? Well, it smartens it up. It makes everything neat. If you don't frame, you've got to somehow deal with the edges. And the edges, some people like to be able to see, you know, a little bit of the behind the scenes process that may have gone on in producing the artwork, and you can see that often on the edges. But I think I like my work to have that process shown in the work, and I don't want to reveal all my secrets in the actual work. I want there to be a little bit of mystery about it. So I like to put a frame on. I like to dress my paintings up to make them look smart, and that's just my personal preference. When it comes to deciding on the frame though, the reason, what I sort of go for is I'm now currently choosing a really thin, I think it's about a 5mm, I think it's about a 5mm profile frame here. And it's a box frame, so there's a little gap between the frame and the actual canvas that sits inside. And that's the look that I like. I like that little dark, shadowy edge that goes around there. And I like them thin because I want the focus to be on the artwork. I didn't spend weeks on this for the main thing to be, oh, I like that frame. And actually that has happened to me. I had a painting that went into an award. It actually won first prize, and one of the judge, the first comment was, "This painting has been very well framed." Well, I'm really pleased about that. I really do think my framer does do a good job, but I did kind of want the focus to be on the artwork. But anyway, so I want the focus to be on the artwork. That's why I want the frame, to support the artwork and not be the star player. So I want a thin frame, and I want it to not dominate. For this painting, because the painting is quite a light painting, I've gone for a light frame. If I put a dark frame around here, it would give it a dark edge, and it would kind of define the edges a lot stronger. But I want to sort of make the strong definition points be within the painting rather than on the frame. So that's why I do that. So let me show you how I actually do these paintings. So this is what I do. I get a cradle panel and I staple the canvas around the cradle panel so that it's nice and hard, just like I was painting on a wall or if I was painting on a cradle panel. When the painting's finished, I just flip out the staples and I'm just left with the canvas. Then I send that off to the framer. So here is what the thing looks like when it comes back from the framer. It has, he's made a stretcher, this thing here, and he's stretched the canvas around it. Then he's made the frame, and the frame sits around the thing, and then I put the hardware on the back. And so that's what basically we do. And with this one, you can see this painting is it's got quite a lot of the dark brown on it. It's got dark and it's a little bit darker. So I decided that this one, I would put a dark frame. So I got this frame arrived looking pretty much like this, and then I stained it with a black stain. Just one coat and it comes up this nice sort of dark brown colour, which I really like on this painting. So this is one of my paintings that hasn't been framed. I think it's directly onto a cradle panel. And what I do with these ones is and you can see that this is not good here, so probably this does need to have a frame. I probably should put this one in a frame because of this bleeding of some black paint through here. But anyway, what I do before I realise I've got this problem is I tape around the edges, or I taped the edges of the cradle panel, but I don't tape it right up to the edge. I bring the tape up to about 5 mils of the edge, and I seal the edge with some gloss medium, and then I just bring the paint, I just paint on here, do whatever I want to do, and at the very end I come in with a little bit of black paint and just finish off this edge, make this nice and instead of it being all scuffed and different colours and whatever, I just paint it black so that it's nice and smart. It gives it a sort of a smart edge to it. Probably what I could do is paint the whole thing black, and then I would solve the problem of this having bled through. The other thing that I do is when I do works on paper, I mount them on a cradled panel, and then I can drop that into a frame as well. And this is what this is. So this is a work on paper, mounted onto a cradle panel. It's been varnished and all the rest of it, and then put into a frame. And once again, it's got a light painting, so it's got sort of a light paint frame. Mostly I go for sort of natural wood, because I think that can sort of fit into any sort of home. But I have done one where it was just a white frame because the painting was very light, had a lot of white in it, and even a light wood would have been a little bit too dark. So I got a white frame around that, but just in this type of frame. And I've done one where I painted the frame dark grey as well, because it was a very dark painting and I just wanted it to be solid dark grey. So I have done that as well. The other consideration is of course cost. And the reason that when I work on paper I will mount them on cradle panels is because I find it's more cost effective to do it that way than to get it framed under glass. And then with shipping and everything, glass is always a little bit more fragile and problematic, so it's easier to ship work away when it's on a cradle panel. So that's kind of my ideas behind framing. Mainly each painting, I have to look at it and decide what sort of frame I'm going to get. My framer, I send off all my canvases in a bulk lot, so I'll send them off sort of 6 or 7 canvases at a time, and there'll be like 2 of this size and 2 or 3 of another size, and that's how he likes to work. He's not so keen on doing one-offs. That keeps the cost down as well. So my advice, if you're thinking about framing your work, is to shop around, find someone who you can work with, and make it clear that you're producing work all the time, that this is going to be an ongoing kind of relationship, and also find the frame that you like. Often the framer can decide what type of frame they want to put on the artwork because it's easier for them. I don't know what makes them. So they can be a little bit persuasive. But stick to your guns and get the frame that you want to have on your work, because ultimately it's your name on the painting, and so all the decisions really are going to be attributed to you. And make sure you keep a tally of the cost and add that onto the price of your painting, so that you can factor that in. If you can't afford to frame, then I would work with cradle panels and just make the edges really smart. Just keep them really smart. And they still look really good on a wall, unframed, I think. A cradle panel has nice sharp edges. You don't have the worry about sort of folded corners and things that you do with a canvas. And you can paint those edges to be really smart. You can even bring the painting right around the edge, and that looks good too sometimes. So work within your budget. Find a way that you can present your work really to a high standard, and be proud of it. Make that be your guiding line, really, the budget, and making sure you get your work looking to a high standard. And the other thing I would say is buying pre-made canvases. Make sure when you do that, you are getting the highest quality ones, because I have in the past bought pre-made canvases and they're not square, then you go and get them framed, and they can't frame them basically. So that's a problem. The cheap ones that come from China, or the cheap mass-produced ones, and they're cheap because, well, you pay for quality, don't you? So just make sure that if you're buying pre-stretched canvases, that they are actually square. Okay, I think that's hopefully covered anything. If you've got any questions about framing, you can always put them in the comments and I'll try and answer them. I'm not an expert, but that's just how I do it. That's my experience, and those are the things that I think about when I'm choosing frames for my paintings. Okay, hope that's helped.